Would you like to get your child's health on track before the end of the year? If so, I have a special offer for you, our beautiful podcast listeners, with a 15% discount off our initial naturopathic consultations with our highly experienced and knowledgeable naturopaths, Laura Christoforidis and Sarah Warboys. All of our consultations are conducted online, making it super convenient for you. And we can help you with things like eczema, asthma, infections and immunity, food intolerances, digestive symptoms, fussy eating, nutrient deficiencies, anxiety, behavioural challenges, enlarged tonsils and adenoids, hormone balance through puberty, supporting ADHD and autistic kids, and so much more. Head on over to our website, naturalsuperkids.com, click on Work With Us, and then book an appointment and use the code November in capitals to book your initial consultation. Consultations must be booked to claim the discount before the end of November, but you can book your appointment into December or January. And we can also help mums too with things like fatigue, energy, thyroid health, adrenal imbalance, hormone health, and digestive concerns as well. Using that same discount, November, when booking your appointment, claim your 15% discount. We cannot wait to support you. Welcome to the Natural Super Kids podcast, where you will discover practical strategies to inspire you to boost the health and nutrition of your kids. I'm Jessica Donovan, a qualified naturopath specialising in kids' health, and I want to make it as easy as possible for you to raise healthy and happy kids. Let's get into it. Hello. Welcome to the Natural Super Kids podcast. Jessica Donovan here. I hope you're doing well. I'm so excited today because we are starting a brand new podcast series, having conversations with everyday mums that have made some progress with their kids' health, nutrition, mood, behavior. Every story is going to be different. So these mums have worked with us in some capacity here at Natural Super Kids. They're either one-on-one clients working with one of our lovely naturopaths, and or they are Natural Super Kids Club members, and they're coming on to share their story in terms of what they have been struggling with their kids' health, some of the healthy changes that they've made, and the improvements that they've noticed when it comes to their kids' health, their mood, or their behaviour. So today I'm super excited to introduce you to Billie. And Billie is mum of two kids, Aries, who we're going to be talking a lot about on the podcast today, who is 5, and Daniela, who is 9. So as you will hear, Aries was struggling with enlarged tonsils and adenoids, sleep apnea, mouth breathing, lots of infections, lots of antibiotics, and had been recommended surgery, getting the tonsils and adenoids removed by an ENT specialist, when she stumbled across one of our podcasts that gave her hope. And I will leave the rest of the story to Billie to share in just a moment. I just want to say, if you are inspired by this conversation and it leads to you wanting to get support from us for your kids' health issues, then the link to our appointments and also the Natural Super Kids Club are in the show notes. You can also find these really easily on our website. So let's hear from Billie. Welcome to the Natural Super Kids podcast, Billie. It's so great to have you here.
Thanks for having me. I'm very excited.
Yeah, so this is the very first of hopefully a series of conversations that we want to bring to the podcast with mums like you. So thank you so much for agreeing to come on. Really excited to chat to you. Can you start by telling us a little bit about you and your family? So people can get to know you a little bit.
Okay, sure. Well, I'm married and I have 2 little ones. my son who is 5, and my daughter who just turned 9. Currently, I'm a stay-at-home mum, and I will be until my son starts school next year. And then I'll probably be looking at re-entering the workforce again.
Yeah.
I'm interested in holistic health after a run around with a lot of doctors and specialists, especially with my son, which is how I stumbled upon the Natural Super Kids Club.
Amazing. Thank you. And that's going to be a big transition for you next year, hey? Like getting back into the workforce.
Yes, yes, a little bit scary, but exciting at the same time. So,
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Okay, awesome. So tell us a little bit about the main challenges and issues that you've been dealing with when it comes to your kids' health, particularly Aries. We're sort of focusing on today, aren't we?
yes, we are. That's right. So with Aries, we since birth, he's always had constant little infections. They just sort of got worse as he got older. We at one point were on constant antibiotics, probably about 2 years ago now, and just the constant chronic infections were causing other problems as well with sleep. His behaviour started to get out of control, waking up angry. It wasn't uncommon for us to find him off the bed and in the hallway because he's just, so crazy when he sleeps.
Restless. Yeah.
Very, very restless. That's right. And then we ended up having to see a ENT specialist. And then they were talking about potential surgery just to try to relieve some of those symptoms. And we also noticed he started getting a bit of apnea where he was probably sleep-related apnea, but where he would stop breathing and then restart again, which was a bit frightening as well. So at that point, I was at a bit of a loss and I started to Google, as you probably shouldn't, but I did. And I stumbled upon the podcast that you and Sarah were actually discussing another client case, and that led me to look at some holistic type of health medicine that we might be able to try because I just didn't really want to go and straight in for an operation without perhaps looking at the underlying issues maybe.
Yeah, definitely. And so that's a case where sometimes Googling leads you in, a positive direction, doesn't it?
Yes.
Sometimes it's not a great option, but I'm so glad you stumbled upon that. And that podcast was all about Sarah, our naturopath, was sharing a case study where she'd worked with a client on enlarged tonsils and adenoids, which is what you were dealing with as well, isn't it? So was the surgery that was recommended to remove both tonsils and adenoids?
Yes, that's correct. So he was primarily even to this day, his tonsils are still quite enlarged, but they are not inflamed. And we have had, which we can discuss later, but we have had virtually no infections since, which is amazing.
Wow, so amazing. And something you said there is really key. Like the tonsils are still fairly large, but they're not inflamed. And our approach here at Natural Super Kids to, enlarged tonsils and adenoids that are causing issues with sleep, with behavior, with immunity is to sort of dig deeper and figure out where that inflammation is coming from. And you're another, success story that we're sort of gonna talk about. So it sounds like you were dealing with a lot, and that's, like, how were you feeling at that time?
I was feeling pretty stressed, and so was my husband. No sleep, constantly no sleep because we're checking on him or he's coming into our room, and just the sickness. It was just antibiotic after antibiotic. And at one point, we had elevated liver enzymes as well because of so much of a particular antibiotic, which was causing him medically, diagnosed by a GP that was causing him quite a lot of issues. So then we had to change, and enough was enough. So very stressful time.
Wow, yeah, you really went through like a big process, didn't you? And what I was just going to say then is like the antibiotics are necessary in those situations to get on top of the infection, but long term they're often causing more issues that are just exacerbating the problem. So you were sort of on this cycle of antibiotics, and then that's affecting not just the liver, like you're saying, but the gut microbiome, which is leaving him more prone to the next infection that kind of comes around. So yeah, we commonly see this sort of, cycle, which is really hard to get off of. So tell us a little bit about some of the changes that like the healthy changes that you made, that we'll get to, like that helped you make progress with his health.
Yeah, so we one of the biggest changes that we made was our diet and lifestyle. So we needed to look at what we were eating. We needed to look at what, even though he was fussy, we needed to change our basically our way of life. So the first thing we started was, and Sarah was fantastic, guiding me the whole way through. We eliminated dairy. So dairy was a huge one, and I can honestly say that I believe in the first probably fortnight to 3 weeks, I would notice a difference, like a big difference. And even at the 6 week mark, after having no dairy, his breathing and his sleep patterns improved dramatically. Like, it was just, I couldn't believe it. It was huge. So we looked at the dairy aspect, and then I also joined the Natural Super Kids Club monthly membership because I felt really stressed, no sleeping and trying to still, be a mum to my daughter. My husband's, had to start work early. So there was a lot of things going on, and to try to look at recipes that were dairy free was a nightmare for me. So I found that joining that membership and having the resources there, the recipes and the meal plans, but also the calcium content in other foods was really helpful to be able to navigate my way around new territory, so to speak. So that was one of the sort of changes that we implemented, and it was good because the recipes, my kids would actually eat quite the bulk of those recipes. Really good.
That's amazing.
And then we sort of started introducing supplements in along with the food. One that really helped and that he really enjoyed having is the PHGG. I don't know its proper name, but that's what I call it. And that was to support his gut health and his bowel regulation, because we struggled with a little bit of constipation as well, because he was eating dribs and drabs and real fussy, and that was a part of our issues along all of these ENT problems. And we also then incorporated the Biome brand probiotics. And in those probiotics, we used the Breathe, which was to help with his respiratory and giving that breathing support at night time. But we also put him on the kit because that would help with his overall immune health, I guess. We also incorporated some cod liver oil to help out with his vitamin D. And he absolutely loves it. And it's quite funny. I was saying to Sarah in one of our reviews, I can't believe he actually likes it because it just smells horrid when you open the bottle. But he just, for some reason, it was his favorite out of all of them. So crazy, I know, that he loved it.
And that's a good example of, like, a lot of parents are like, there's no way my child will have a cod liver, like a liquid cod liver oil or a liquid fish oil, or take any supplements. But yeah, sometimes we're surprised by what our kids will take and what they like.
Yeah, it was actually surprising. So the fact that he wanted to have it just made my life so much easier as well. I had to also introduce omega-3s and move away from, I think Sarah said they were the omega-6s. So we were introducing the omega-3s. And just to give you a little example, like, they loved smoothies in the morning, banana and oat smoothies. And I added in like a bit of flaxseed in there, and that was a really good way to hide it as well. And Fish Friday, that turned into a thing now. So making sure that we're getting the fish, and Aries is quite fond of the little white bait, which are actually quite high in calcium, which is a bonus as well. So
definitely, that's another surprise that you probably wouldn't have thought that he would have eaten that.
No, I wouldn't have. So diet, lifestyle, supplements. We also did a few other little things as well. Sunshine was really important. So the kids always play outside, and we go away a fair bit. And when we are away, I noticed that at night time, both of them sleep so much better. I mean, it's fresher air, you're by the beach and things like that, but they just sleep better overall. So Sarah and I put it into the plan that it was a thing that make sure, rain, hail or shine, that he gets out there for those few hours. And I feel like that really helps support his sleep as well. And then just lastly, I wanted to mention to you as well that we sort of started with the essential oils as well. For his chest, for example, a bit of a balm with eucalyptus and some lavender. When I say eucalyptus, it's the radiata, which is safe for small children. And the lavender and the other one was peppermint, that's right. And then that was a bit of a balm. And that smelt beautiful, and that really just settled him off sleep as well. So look, lots of things that it was a complete lifestyle overhaul essentially.
Yeah, but I love that because there was some dietary changes, there were some supplements, there were some lifestyle changes, using essential oils. So all these different modalities that added up to really helping. And just going back to the PHGG, which for anyone listening who's like, what is that? It's partially hydrolyzed guar gum. It's a mouthful. We just call it PHGG as well. It's a prebiotic that feeds the healthy bacteria. So Sarah put together a really beautiful comprehensive plan looking at like probiotics, but not just any probiotics, specific strains for his particular, individual picture. And I do just want to state for anyone, like stress for anyone listening, some of these supplements may help other kids, but the benefit of working with a practitioner is that you get that advice, that really individualized advice, because not all kids with enlarged tonsils and adenoids and these issues that we're talking about have the same underlying kind of factors. So dairy is commonly an issue, but not always an issue. So get inspiration from this conversation, but those supplements aren't necessarily going to be, the solution for everybody. But those strain specific probiotics in those probiotic blends that you were talking about. And I think that is a whole conversation in itself, that different probiotic strains are beneficial for different uses. And so we often get comments from mums saying, I've tried probiotics and they didn't work, but were they strong enough? Were they the right probiotic for what you were trying to achieve? So just wanted to mention those couple of things, and also say, like, well done to you for making all of those changes, because, as the practitioners here at Natural Super Kids, it's our job to kind of figure out the puzzle and give the advice and put together the treatment plan. But it's the parents, let's be honest, mainly the mums that are responsible that are responsible for implementing this stuff. And even though these changes are simple, it takes a bit of extra mental energy, like at first, to make these changes. So did you come across like any sort of hurdles making the changes, or were you just sort of like all in and wanting to get as much of these good changes, healthy changes happening as possible?
I know we were all in because it was very stressful in our household. So it was like we need to do this. So yeah. And then it was just a case of researching as well, like just other little things, dust and vacuum all the time. And even we talked about is it a HEPA filter?
HEPA filter,
Yeah,
yes.
HEPA filter, things like that. So just massive changes.
Yeah. And I think what you're saying, though, is like it's not all about the supplements. We try and minimize the amount of supplements. Supplements are like the icing on the cake. It's what we're doing in the diet and the lifestyle and environment. And so interesting what you said about how your kids, sleep better when you're away and they're outside. They're probably more active, and then bringing some of those healthy habits into your everyday life. I really loved that idea as well. So thank you so much for sharing. And so what improvements, like what are the big changes that you've noticed since implementing those healthy changes?
So he did a complete somersault, really. His sleeping has drastically improved. He even stopped the apnea related type behavior, which was
Amazing.
massive. Like that was really quite worrying. He was mouth breathing originally. I probably forgot to mention that. But then during this, at 12 weeks, after we'd sort of been 3 months on the plan and living this life, he was sleeping, breathing through his nose, well rested, waking up. His behavior was a really big one. He was happy. He wasn't agitated, and his day naps had slowed down as well, which was obviously sleeping better at night. Um, So just overall, his eating improved, and with all of the cooking and making from scratch, no reliance on packaged foods, that really improved his tummy. So the gut health was a really big one that we had to work on. And I feel like everybody's gut health in the house improved because we did it as a team, to want to help him through this time. So,
I love that.
yeah.
Yeah. And that's often the feedback we get, like from people who join the Natural Super Kids Club. They'll say, oh, my husband's now got more energy, because of the changes that we're making, or, mum's feeling less stressed because of the changes that we're making. So these healthy changes that we often make to improve our kids' health can definitely benefit the whole family as well. And when our kids are sleeping better, they're getting sick less and their behaviors improve. Like, life's just so much different, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. And just on that, I would probably add, so it would have been about early this year that we started to see Sarah regarding all these problems, or we booked in December last year. So it's about a year. He's actually had no tonsillitis, no infections, no antibiotics. Don't get me wrong, we have had like a common cold here and there and some green boogies, but that's where it's kind of stopped. So we were lucky enough that by him, staying off the dairy, we've had challenges, with cakes and birthday cakes, but no infections. And even to the point where we've gone to see the ENT and he's said we don't need to think about that anymore.
Amazing. So no surgery is required.
No.
And that's like, oh, what a relief, hey? Because
Yeah.
I mean, getting tonsils and adenoids removed, that surgery, I think it's like the top surgery in kids. And it can be like a good move for some families. It can be life changing. But like you've talked about, and we've shared multiple stories like this, if we can get on top of this without needing to see our kids go through surgery, like that's a huge win, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And I think he was quite surprised because Aries was a frequent flyer, seeing the GP and his appointments with him from birth. So he was quite impressed. And on that, I did ask him about the whole dairy thing because a lot of people sometimes think that, it's a crazy notion and there's no truth to it. But he did say, being a specialist, that he has seen it in his career, that yeah, definitely it's not a fit for all, but it does. Some children genuinely are, a little bit allergic to it, I suppose, and it can give them these inflamed, areas. But he's overall so happy, and that was music to my ears and my husband's because it was just such a relief.
Yes, definitely. And I just want to add to that, like a lot of kids get tested for dairy allergy, like CMPA, cow's milk protein allergy, and it comes back that they're not allergic, but you can still have an intolerance or a sensitivity that is like leading to issues like this. So just because, you've had the all clear for cow's milk protein allergy, there could still be intolerances and sensitivities that are sort of harder to pick up. So is he still off dairy, or have you managed
Yes.
to? Yeah.
No, we've kept him off, and don't get me wrong, he's a little boy and he loves pizza. And some of the vegan cheese that you can get just gives a whole other range of problems, because they're so artificially, composed. But on the occasions, I've noticed that if he does have a slice of pizza or if he goes to a party and has cake, he will sound like he's got a bit of a cold. And then, we're sort of like that for a few days and then it goes away. So he does sort of have that real intolerance to it.
Still has that reaction, and that's kind of a good way to test. Like, let him go a little bit at a party, let him have the birthday cake, and then see what effect it has on him. Yeah, and I guess like when you cut out something like dairy from the diet, it's really tricky at first, but then it becomes easier, doesn't it? Because you find the milk alternative, you find the yogurt alternative, you find the, I don't know, the local ice cream shop that sells, dairy-free ice cream. Yeah. So have you got any like, I don't know, like particular products, particular milks and things like that have helped you, and that he likes maybe to share with people listening?
Yeah, sure. So we use Pure Harvest brand in our home. We use almond, coconut, and oat. We all use all three. His favorite is probably oat, but I tend to use a lot of almond if I'm doing, depending on what I'm making, and coconut in cooking. Just on that though, the coconut doesn't have the fortification, sorry, with calcium in it. So that's just one thing that I had to learn and navigate as well. But yeah, Pure Harvest is definitely a good one to go to milk wise. And with the yogurt, surprisingly, the Coles brand organic natural coconut yogurt was the one that I found had the least additives in it over Coca Bella as well. So that was another favourite.
Awesome. That's a great tip.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. And I love that you're mixing up the alternative milks as well, because they all have different sort of pros and cons, like nutritionally. So if you can use, a bit of almond, a bit of oat, a bit of coconut, I think that's a really good way to do it. And they all have different properties in terms of some are better in baking, some taste better in smoothies, that sort of thing as well. So you've just done so amazing. Thank you for coming on and sharing your story. And the other thing I want to just end with, we've got some quick fire questions to get to know you a little bit better. Are you ready for these?
Yes, absolutely. Fire away.
Okay, first one is, what do you think your kids would say if I asked them what makes you a good mum?
They would say, Mummy loves us. They say that to everybody all the time. It's very cute, but they would say she organizes. My son, if you ask my son, he'd say she organizes everything. She gets everything ready.
I love it.
Mummy's the organizer.
Yes, 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 yes. Oh, I think that's such a good question to reflect on. Like, what would they say? Because I think it's hard for us to come up with what makes me a good mum. So that's lovely. And what do you find most challenging in motherhood?
Probably regulating their moods and then regulating myself so that I'm able to, calm them down, because we all have meltdowns, and so do children, obviously, and then they trigger our meltdown. So that's my most biggest challenge, I think.
I don't think you're alone there. I'm certainly right there with you with like my kids are older, but they're 14 and 16. And I feel like this is a very easily like a triggering time. I get triggered very easily by my teenagers. So I think when we're getting triggered by our kids and there's that struggle with emotional regulation, it's like looking back into us and going, okay, like why am I so triggered by this? And as you're saying, like working on yourself to be more kind of better equipped to deal with those up and downs of emotions, because they're inevitable through motherhood.
Yeah, for sure.
What do you personally do to kind of keep your cup full to be able to deal with all of that?
So I like to do a little bit of breath work and a bit of meditation when I get some time to myself, just to be able to calm my nervous system, because I feel like when I'm dysregulated, it's really obvious in the house and everybody then becomes dysregulated because I'm losing the plot. So
definitely. And they say mum's nervous system kind of governs the way the rest of the household is. It's a lot of pressure for us, but it's also a good way of us realizing how important it is that we look after our own nervous system, right?
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. Awesome. And what do you prefer doing with your kids? Is it crafts? Is it cooking? Or is it outdoor adventures?
We are outdoor adventure people for sure. Yeah. Love to go away. Even sometimes during the school holidays, our local council will have mini hikes, and they give out these little bags where they've got little maps and interesting things they can do along the way. So definitely outdoors.
Yeah, I love that. Lots of like we all need creative ways to get outside more with our kids. And we talk a lot about, how important it is for our kids to spend time outside. And I always say the best way to get our kids to spend more time outside is to go with them and do outdoor adventures with them. So that's awesome. Thank you for sharing. And what's a meal that you make, a dinner that you make that everyone eats?
So that would be the super spaghetti bolognese, and that's one of your super kids club recipes. And then I also sneak in the food processor is my best friend, and load it up sometimes even with adding a little bit of lentils in there and some other veg, because they just can't see it. And it's amazing. So it depends on what I've got in the fridge. So sometimes we modify, but definitely the super spaghetti.
Yeah, and that is loaded with lots of veg. And I think like a bolognese is such a good way to like load in extra like lentils and veggies. Yeah, so that's awesome. And lastly, what would you do if you had 2 hours to yourself today?
The laundry. The laundry is crazy out of control, the laundry for sure.
Like sometimes it's getting on top of those things that can make us feel like,
Yeah,
like
organized.
organized. Yeah, the laundry, it's non-stop, isn't it?
Never closes, always open for business.
So true. Oh, thank you, Billie. It has been an absolute delight to talk to you today. Thank you so much for sharing. And yeah, I'm sure just like the podcast that you listened to inspired you to, book in an appointment with our naturopath, Sarah, and join the Natural Super Kids Club and make these amazing healthy changes that you've made for your family and get these incredible results. Yeah, I'm sure your story is going to inspire others. So thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. Head on over to our website, naturalsuperkids.com, for the show notes for this episode, as well as a whole heap of inspiration to help you raise healthy and happy kids. I'll see you next week. Head off, don't forget we have a special offer for you, our beautiful podcast listeners, with 15% off our initial online naturopathic consultations. Our naturopaths, Laura and Sarah, are highly experienced and knowledgeable in both children's and women's health and are well equipped to support you and address the underlying cause of your children's or your own health challenges. Head on over to our website, naturalsuperkids.com, click on Work With Us and book an appointment. Use the code November in capitals to book your initial appointment and get your 15% discount. Your booking must be made before the end of November, but your appointment can be booked into December and even January. We can't wait to support you.